back on this special one-hour edition of The List. So far, we've gotten our guests' third and second choices for greatest moments in rock. Now, let's see what's on your fevered little minds. Dear Al, I am Lisa from Miami, Florida, or so she says. And my pick for greatest moment in rock history was the impact of grunge from Seattle. This explosion of Nirvana, Pearl Jam, and Soundgarden onto the scene will never be duplicated. Grunge was more about attitude and self-expression than the clothing. Please consider it for your list. Okay, consider it considered. What do you guys think?
It certainly it certainly made me feel great when it all blew up. It made me feel like this is people who are my age who had what I thought was the spirit of rock inside of them, the spirit of rebellion and angst and also fun. But it's also gone now,
like the Kingsman influence.
Well, you know, it always seems like rock music, popular culture, always goes to a place where, you know, this spirited band comes out, and then we always go to a place where the music gets so slick and produced that, you know, you just want to mess it up, you want to shake it up a little bit. Kingsman did it, certainly punk rock did it, and certainly Nirvana did it too, the whole grunge music. It always needs to be shaken up every once in a while.
You know, there's something coming around the bend again now. Obviously, there is the undercurrent of kind of the Limp Bizkit style rock, but superimposed over top of NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears. It's very, very slick now, and there's, you know, we're going to come and kick the man's ass soon.
Okay,
it's my job.
Yeah.
Let's move on to our second email. This is from Brandon, and Brandon says, if I could turn back the clock on rock history, Monterey Pop would be the place to be. Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and so many wild times. That moment was rock and roll at its best. What do you think?
Oh, I think festival rock was really had a great time in the 60s. We certainly haven't seen it duplicated in that innocent way.
7 hours of Ravi Shankar isn't exactly rock and roll at its best. It's good music, but it's I think what that did for people was it was a free festival, and it was you know, put on by rock stars. It was put on by like John Phillips and the Mamas and the Papas, and it exposed a whole bunch of music to a whole bunch of varied music, everything from The Who to Hendrix to Mamas and Papas, Simon and Garfunkel, to people who wouldn't normally see those kinds of acts all together on one bill.
But they probably also liked those acts much better because they were so high.
Yep.
You know? that is a big problem with you know, with festivals and, you know, in music. In a lot of cases, a lot of people tend to enjoy their music while under the influence of something. I thought
Let's not dwell on that. Let's get on to the moment you've all been waiting for. Oh. That's right, our guests' #1 choices. I can't stand the excitement. Martha, what did you
there's
got?
so many great moments in rock and roll. Like Dweezil said, like, how can you pick them all? I mean, there's just, it's so huge. There's Little Richard, there's Bruce Springsteen, there's Bohemian Rhapsody. There's so many great things. How do you pick the great one? But I, in fact, have not only picked the #1 greatest moment in rock history to me, but frankly, it is the one. It is the #1 moment. And I thought of it when I was driving my car, and I thought, I know the moment. It is the moment when the planets conspired and the stars aligned to make Paul McCartney walk down the street and meet John Lennon for the first time. And just that cataclysmic fate crossing their paths changed everything.
Wait, who?
They're in the Beatles. No, I heard a rumor. Are your pets named after names on the White Album?
Yes, I had 4 cats. I had Dear Prudence, Molly, Sexy Sadie, and who is my other cat? Desmond. Desmond and Molly.
Wow. Very clever.
Yes.
That's great.
Very big.
Stephen, what's your #1?
Well, it's similar to the explosion of grunge in the previous email, but mine is, I think, the embodiment of rock and roll rebellion. I think over here in America, Hotel California was at the top of the charts. Elvis was dying on the toilet, and across the Atlantic, punk rock was flourishing. It's the emergence of punk rock and what it's done to music.
You don't think Elvis is dying had anything to do with the emergence of punk rock?
I will apologize for the musicianship.
Yeah.
Yeah, what?
Actually, you know, the musicianship on this record is actually pretty good because I'm sure they didn't play it.
In their own style, they were pretty good at what they were doing and playing out of tune and just barely in time.
Yeah.
That is the essence of punk rock in many ways, but there were very few that were really good at punk rock.
But I think the spirit of in-your-face rebellion is what makes
what rock should be.
Exactly.
But, you know,
and
I think if it's done with a little bit more...
we need that as a kick in the pants now and again.
Yeah, I never purchased any of those albums, but, you know, I can recognize their symbolic importance.
Judy?
I chose these artists who I think influenced everyone, and they were viewed for the first time by people in the United States, by 72 million people. They brought the United States out of the horrible depression of the assassination of JFK, and that, of course, were the Beatles on Ed Sullivan.
Yes.
The Beatles on Ed Sullivan. Well, when they were singing, though.
I don't think we licensed that.
Oh, we couldn't license
I guess,
it?
but we can imagine what they're sounding like right now.
They weren't allowed to show their shoes on Ed Sullivan.
That's right. Their shoes were too sexy.
Yeah.
You know, the great thing about when the Beatles appeared on Ed Sullivan is the crime rates dropped in cities all across the country. I am dead serious because people were all home watching the Beatles.
Yes.
Yeah, a one-night reprieve.
Hey, there you go. One night,
good.
better than nothing.
You know, so many great moments in rock happened on the Ed Sullivan Show. I think the birth of Ed Sullivan should probably be a great moment in rock.
Yeah.
You know, he was such a bigger-than-life, iconic figure, kind of like, you know, a Carson Daly.
But did he book the show, or do you think, you know, other people booked it and he just went, yeah, yeah. I don't want those
He
Beatles.
didn't know this.
Yeah.
He didn't know anybody.
Yeah.
Dweezil, what's your big pick?
Well, you see, you know, for me, as important as this was to me, I don't know if it would be for general culture, but Edward Van Halen's guitar playing influenced many, many guitar players in the world, and I mean, perhaps in the same way that Jimi Hendrix was influential, you know, he reinvented the electric guitar, and when I heard what he was doing, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't imagine that there was somebody that could make the guitar do what he was doing, and I would just have to say the release of Van Halen's first album, and in particular, Eruption, the guitar solo that he performed on that.
That was an amazing album, and I can't argue with it, but I just have to wonder what your thought process was when you're coming up with the rankings. Like, you know, Dad was cool, but Van Halen rocks!
Well, like I said, you know, I didn't choose it in any particular order of, you know, what would be best. It's just whatever I feel, you know, for me that was important in music and you know, my own upbringing. But whether it relates to society, I don't care.
Okay. Well, we've got 12 incredible picks. Coming up, our panelists put on their gloves and knock out 4 from the list. Also, a special performance from the amazing Third Eye Blind. So stay rooted to the spot. We'll be right back.